We've learned it in your example. Copilot is branding their tool as a world-class coach. If you now as an HR says, oh, I can save that budget because we have now Copilot, and I know by my preferred vendor's statement that this is a wonderful coach, this is sorted and they don't need any other coaching, then I might create some structural problems with my workforce when they use it for career development.
In today's conversation, we're going to face the pink elephant in the room. The question of responsibility in AI coaching, and who is actually shaping what coaching means for the world. This is The Edge of Human and AI, a Viva la Coaching podcast. We sit right where coaching meets AI. And we're not afraid to ask the uncomfortable questions. We built this show because the coaching landscape is being reshaped by intelligent systems. And the organizations, leaders, and companies shaping that future deserve honest conversations. Each week, we'll help you understand how AI is transforming coaching. We discuss leadership development and human growth across organizations. We will help you navigate the ethical and strategic decisions that come with bringing AI into the coaching space. You'll hear from researchers, innovators, and industry leaders, as well as experts who are reimagining what's possible. Whether you're navigating AI for the first time or already building with it, this is where you belong. Follow us now and join us at vivalacoaching.com. Come stand with us at the edge. We're starting our podcast with a special season from the leading voices of the NYU Coaching and Technology Summit 2026. We will bring you bold, unfiltered conversations at the frontier where coaching meets technology and artificial intelligence. Expect real talk, sharp minds, and unfiltered conversations where we dare to ask the difficult questions. My guest is Lewin, founder and CEO of CoachBot AI, trained coach, former Googler, and one of the most honest voices I know in this space. We'll discover why the coaching profession, despite decades of growth, remains a tiny island in a very large ocean, and why that gap is now being filled by tools the profession didn't build and doesn't control. And we'll hear his urgent call to coaches everywhere. This is not just an opportunity, it is a moral obligation. So welcome, and thank you for joining me for this podcast episode today.
Hi, Rebecca. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. So let's get started. I'd be really curious to let our listeners know about what you're currently working on that might be very interesting for them.
So at the minute, there's two things that we're actively working on. On one side, we're working on the ability to create AI coaching tools with AI-led creation process, like a wizard. So imagine you just give your wish list and the AI creates it in a way that it's really good and really powerful. And you don't need a man in the middle, an agency in the middle to help you with that process. And then secondly, we're also working on an AI training room that is really smart in capturing the right type of feedback from coaches, your clients, from your own feedback, and then refine the quality of your AI tools.
Wow, that sounds really cool. I mean, I tried a couple of things that you're doing. So maybe to give people a little bit of an idea what CoachBot does, maybe you just want to sum it up a little bit in a few sentences.
CoachBot is an AI technology platform serving as an infrastructure provider to both coaches and organizations that want to create AI and coaching tools. With our platform, it's fairly easy to create AI coaches that serve either as standalone products or to augment your existing human coaching.
So in easy language means really people can use your platform to build AI coaching chatbots that they can then use either for their coaching practice or within corporates or for their training institutes.
100%. And they don't need to worry about all the right and left and back and forth, because we have an underlying infrastructure that brings in the governance, some of the things that are needed in order to make the coaching successful and safe.
So let's start with a little bit of a challenging question here. What do you see as being currently that pink elephant in the room when you look at our whole industry that nobody really wants to talk about, or maybe doesn't yet know how to talk about?
The uncomfortable truth here, I think, is responsibility. And the responsibility starts with even just the thoughts about what we want to create and then the design, but it ends with some really hard facts like liability. And I believe we do not do enough and we do not talk enough about the responsibility that we carry when we build tools and we externalize those tools to users and the potential impact. I'm very positively surprised by the latest developments in China and their AI Act and how much they're regulating the AI companions. It's a bold step forward in order to protect their society from overreaching AI and from people becoming too dependent on it. And I feel over here in the Western world, we're pretty much being okay with, there are some dangers, there are some risks, but yeah, let's just put those aside. So the responsibility is still something that we as society, as policymakers, as tech developers, as coaches and providers, we still need to be a little more honest about and make together sense of.
So what does irresponsible look like for you?
Irresponsible looks for me like similar to your company's social responsibility strategy if you do not take all the stakeholders into account. If you're just optimizing for some parts of your stakeholders, might it be your shareholders, maybe as a tech developer, your investors and how to maximize value for them? Might it be only looking at your current users and maybe forgetting about some of the other users that are out there? Might it be for underrepresented user groups or for some user groups that are in particular, let's say, in danger when it comes to your tools? Think of teenagers, of underage users. But it's also taking into account the existing stakeholders in the space. For example, in our case, what does the tool do to the human coaches out there? And then last but not least, obviously also the environment. Those tools can be super impactful, but what is the cost to that in terms of water and electricity need? So irresponsibly for me is like we're looking just on one or a limited amount of stakeholders that are being impacted by the tools that we're creating.
So looking at how to do it right or how to do it responsibly, what does responsible AI in coaching actually mean in practice for you?
It can be super complex, but in fact, if I break it down, it's just being very transparent and honest about what we don't know, but about what we don't figure out yet, what we're still in process of learning, of understanding. That's, the best kind of advice I can give to myself of staying loyal to my own values, of staying loyal to my mission, staying loyal to, the colleagues in the space and obviously all the people that we want to create impact for.
I get that question quite a lot. It's like, how do you make sure when you build an AI coach that it stays within the framework, that it doesn't do anything stupid, that it doesn't, like we talked about it before, have a flywheel going on and doesn't let you go out of that? So what do you do differently that supports that type of responsible use?
Yeah. Question of my life. It's indeed a big one and a challenging one. Even if you're committed to solving that problem, solving for how the LLMs have been designed and how they're acting to make them usable and safe for coaching, learning, or any other kind of profession going into therapy or healthcare is a tough one. And I want to just appreciate and acknowledge everyone who's building for a safer future when it comes to using conversational technology built with large language models or small language models. The first thing you usually do and we do is prompting. In prompts, we can clearly define the instruction to the machine and say, always do this, sometimes do this, never do this. And we can be very extreme with our prompts to add additional rules and, let's say, force create certain behaviors or not allow certain behaviors. However, everyone in this room or who's listening who has prompted before knows, even if you're really good and really clear in writing the prompts, there is not a guarantee that the machine will always follow. That means, in 10 cases, the machine might exactly follow the instructions as you wrote them. And then on the 11th one, it goes sideways or overreaches or does something that you were not intending to do. So what we're doing on CoachBot on top is, first of all, we're moderating our content. What does that mean? You can moderate the LLM input and you can moderate the LLM output. So what does your AI coach say to you is the output? And I want to talk about this one now, because we have an opportunity to build a separate, let's say, analyzer, a police officer that has a clear understanding of what is allowed in what part of the conversation with respective context. And this police officer can scan the conversation throughout, and it can catch the message before we bring it out to the user of the tool, the coachee. So with that, we have a moderating agent that has very clear instructions and is, from a technical angle, explained, simplified, as decoupled from the rest of the system. So at all times, it can interfere and overrule the AI coach by saying, hey, what you just want to send to the user is not according to the rules that I've been built with. And this is an extra layer of safety net.
I like that. So how does a moderated, governed AI infrastructure, something that you're building, change the picture in general without compromising the quality of the coaching conversation?
So first of all, when we are building with coaching providers or organizations, we're asking them for the moderation rules and the guardrails. And just by asking them, they're like, what? What do you need from me? I didn't think about that yet, right? Like I thought about all the other things, but okay. So first of all, the cool part about the infrastructure is oftentimes we're creating reflections and thought process that would have not been there if people would just go without that ask into the building process, because they would start building their methodology, how to welcome the user, how to maybe assess certain things. But by having that framework that our infrastructure brings, you need to ask yourself those sometimes complex, difficult, or uncomfortable questions, and you need to make hard choices. Am I willing to go into something that we consider as therapy? How do I define when would therapy start? And that is a lot of work. So we're making this as easy as possible by bringing out predefined prompts that we work out with folks like yourself and other leaders in the space, and then share with the community in order to create a head start and a safe space. But this will never be enough to build the tool exactly according to your preferences and the ethics and the guardrails that apply to your situation. So with that, I believe our governed infrastructure helps, first of all, to ask the right questions, and then we help you to also find the right answers. And with that, it's a test and refine approach. It's always coming to that point where you have an idea, you implement it into a prompt, you test it, and then you make a judgment. And this judgment call can only be done by you as the creator, who carries the responsibility for this tool. Now, in our case, it's a shared responsibility because we believe it's always both the infrastructure that makes the system work, that creates a moderating system that works, but then it's also the content. And this is the creator, which is usually the coaching provider, the coach, or the organization that builds the tool and sends it to users.
So they have to go through a complete reflective process themselves to be clear about what they actually want and where they want it to be headed and how responsible they would like to have it as well. Let's go into a very interesting topic about directive and non-directive. I hear that quite a lot, like this is not an AI coach. This is giving, advice like ChatGPT does all the time. We had some latest researchers also coming in last year around that people actually want more directive coaching than we think sometimes that people would like to. How are you seeing this and how are you approaching this within your tool?
Fundamental question, difficult topic. Yes. When I started my mission of reaching 1 billion end users, coaches, with a tool that I name an AI coach, I was pretty blunt and naive about thinking I can bring what I learned in my coach training to an AI and then it would do the job. Because the very initial feedback that I got from my early beta users, my test users, was, I mean, this tool is pretty cool, but it feels like an interrogation and it's not helping me like GPT does. And the feedback from coaches that I got was like, oh my God, this is the most amazing AI coach that I've ever talked to because it sticks so much to the ICF code of ethics and the way I understand coaching. So there was a massive gap between methodological depth and user stickiness or likability of the tool. So it was in my first 3 months of being live with the tool where I went through that inner process of letting go of my standard that I set to only create a non-directive coach for the sake of reaching a higher goal, which is making the tool also adoptable. And this was a tough process for me because I went into waters where it felt unsafe. It felt, when we talk again about the responsibility, as something that I might be personally liable for to some extent. So how could I design a process that helps us to create adoption through directiveness while protecting the interests of the users and respecting the boundaries that have been set during the design and testing process? And what I can tell is that we've done some research as well with the Stellenbosch Business School and one of their researchers on a certain audience and if they prefer directive versus non-directive. And I can confirm directive is interesting and is demanded. And I think it's no surprise. But with that, we went a little deeper and understood what are our possibilities as an infrastructure provider to make it safe building directive coaches or mentors or companions or whatever the coach or the creator wants to build with us. And we figured out it's not so much about can the AI coach get into directive mode? It's more about when can it go into directive mode? And most important, how does it come back into the non-directive mode? So with people like yourself, we learned about what are the right phases or stages of coaching that are well equipped for some form of directiveness of an LLM. And how do we need to define the prompts in such moment in order to, still hold the respective boundaries, still work with the standards that we've already known from the coaching bodies, from our experience in coaching, from the research. And then how do we define a system? And for us, there are clear handover points when to come back from the directive coaching into the non-directive. And so far, knock on wood, I don't have wood here, but I'm very lucky that I haven't had complaints or issues with the AI coach's ability to come back into non-directiveness.
Yeah, but it's a much discussed topic within our industry as well, because through AI come in a lot of the things that we have always had maybe in the coaching industry, but they were maybe not surfaced in the discussions that we need to have on like how much do we want to have in there? Because I think a lot of people have already done a little bit of directiveness in certain phases within even a normal coaching conversation. I think that's just something that is now coming to the surface and being a discussion point more and more also within the industry, because we see that users really want it. But how do you do this? And then we go back to the responsible part without taking their autonomy away and their self-reflection and still supporting them on their path without just giving them, let's say, the fast food instantly.
When we work with coaches or L&D experts on our platform, when they prompt themselves and they create their own AI coaches, they know the structure that they're building by heart, right? Because they build it and they define every stage of their conversation and every handover and so forth. But with some, we also go and we help them do it because they don't have the time or the skills or the depth or whatsoever. And then they're basically sending us a wish list. They're uploading their content. They're giving us some inspiration and some goals. And we're working the tool out. And when we create something for them, we're going into this testing phase. And we always attach a briefing that shows exactly what is the flow of the tool that we designed. And then we also highlight the the respective parts that allow for the tool to maybe go out of the non-directive mode. And we justify why we allow this and why it might be important for the user in this moment to connect with the tool in a more mentorship-oriented approach. And I feel this comes back to what I said earlier. The best chance to be responsible right now is being transparent. And I feel it's also our obligation as coaches or creators of AI to be transparent to our users and say, hey, this is a tool that's purely non-directive. It might not be what you're expecting if you're a heavy LLM user. Or we say, hey, this tool is designed in coaching standards, but it leaves the coaching space at times. And, you can expect this when you ask for a brainstorm session, or you can expect this here. But it is also designed in a way to come back to make sure we reach a certain level of reflection. And I feel this transparency, this upfront communication, not just throwing the tool out there and say, here's the link, use it, but actually informing and then getting consent also for that information is an important part. And I want to highlight that no one on our platform can use an AI coach before having actively consented the disclaimers. And those disclaimers are part of the onboarding for me. And it's part of the design of what makes AI coaching responsible. And we cannot hide those disclaimers in long T&Cs, terms and conditions or privacy policy. They need to be easy to understand. So the language needs to be simple. They need to be directly in your face. And you need to very clearly say, okay, I've read it and I agree. And only then the AI coaching starts. Because if we have misinformed users, we're going to have the problems at some point.
I mean, we see them already. I mean, like there's so many AI coaches out there that are not coaching, per se. And I think that's really a big topic as well for our industry, because it will confuse our users as well, and our clients on what really coaching is, and also the discussion then on what will be the relevance of coaching in the future. So what do you think the coaching profession does need to do right now to really stay relevant and maybe even lead in that age of AI?
There's a storm in me. When you started talking, I know where this is going. And now I'm going on a rant. I'm sorry for everyone, but
that's okay. That's what we want here, the honest discussions.
As per my research over the last 2 years, we have about 120,000 professional coaches that went to certification on this planet. About 90,000 are likely credentialed. Just to compare those numbers a little bit, I think we have about 750,000 management consultants only in the US. Make sense of those numbers. Now, let's know that this coaching profession is a tiny, circle of people on the globe. And they're heavily distributed in the Western world, like North America and Europe. We're seeing Asia on the race, which is fantastic. And I'm so happy, with every coach that I speak in Asia to see that so much is evolving. But we're still a tiny species on this planet. Now, the amount of people out there is ever growing, right? 8 billion going to 9 billion. And if we're looking at the adult population and, something like, 18 years to maybe, what do we say today? 80? Maybe you can even be coached with 90 or 100. I don't know. But there are easily 4 billion people out there that could make use of coaching, my personal opinion. Now, how should 120,000 people that are certified serve this massive amount of people? And then if we go on LinkedIn and we put in coach, we're going to see there's many more coaches than just 120,000. There are millions. I think one time I saw 5 billion people calling themselves a coach. Now, we have to take into consideration that in sports, coaching is, the proper terminology, and it's totally okay for those guys to use the word. I think this is where it's coming from, but it's very different from our coaching. And then there are probably 100, if not 1,000 different variations of understanding of what is coaching. And many folks who have been in a certain space for a while and they feel like an expert, they call themselves a coach because they might not even know the difference of a mentor or coach, or they just fancy the word coach because it works well in marketing. Again, not here to judge anything, but I'm just saying we have a structural access gap from the amount of people that can provide coaching to the people that might want to receive coaching. In the past, coaching has been very much a luxury good for the elite. And this elite is basically executives, people with a high budget, and those who maybe were lucky enough by the universe to experience the power of coaching and then say, wow, this is so helpful to me that I want more of it, and I'll find ways to make it happen. As an example for me, my first coachings were pretty cheap because I got them from someone who was in coach training. I just paid a symbolic fee, basically, for them to even provide coaching. But this was a way for me to learn about the Grow, the Oscar model, and so forth without paying $250 or more an hour as a student, right? So that was a different budget. So with that, we never gave people, and I'm talking about the vast majority who are not part of this elite, the opportunity to experience coaching, because through the access gap, it was way too expensive for the majority of folks. And we know a good coach oftentimes goes even higher than the global average of an ICF coach of 250 euros. Yeah, sometimes I know good coaches that cost 900 an hour. So with that, we now go into a period where someone else than the coaching buddies and the coaching leaders and the coaches in this space is defining what coaching is. Because we, since about 2-3 years, have this trend of technology providers, the developers, the tech companies out there, using the term AI coaches for the companions that they're building. And AI coaches, similar to coaching itself, is not a protected terminology or definition or profession. So in my understanding, AI coaches are companions that mix different techniques like mentoring, therapy, or coaching to some bulk that we then classify as AI coaching. For the users out there that have never experienced coaching, and unfortunately, if we think about the 4 billion that we talked about earlier, it's, the 90% plus, unfortunately, a lot more that have never experienced coaching. And if they now go into those tools, which are branded as AI coaches, they have an understanding of what coaching is. But it has not been shaped by the coaching professionals. It has been shaped by the technology developers that built those tools and named them AI coaches. And just looking at the numbers from OpenAI, I think the last time I read about public numbers, which is a few months back. This was before Gemini was getting so successful and Claude stealing a lot of the users from OpenAI. They, I think, were about 850 million weekly active users. So let's assume this tool back then was already 1 billion users that they were having actively. Then there's Gemini, there's Copilot, there's Claude, there's Mistral, and all the smaller ones. And it's just like a lot of people are now having an understanding of what coaching is, which is not at all shaped by the definition of the ICF, the MCC, the AC, or many of us that have been going through coach training. So coming to that conclusion about all the facts that I presented and your question, what do we have to do now? We have to make a decision. Are we willing to let the technology companies and whoever is financing them, their shareholders, define with their marketing what is coaching by the world getting to know coaching through AI coaches? Or is there another way? Is there another path? And all I can do is hold up the flag with a few fellow practitioners in the space. And I'm very grateful for everyone who's taking out time of their busy schedule to inform, to educate, to take other coaches by the hand for them to not become only literate, but also mature, and help them explore AI in a way that they stop being afraid of it. And with that, we have a real opportunity because now we can also shape AI tools. And this is exactly the mission behind CoachBot. I want the coaches who are interested to use AI to close that access gap in a way that we bring the quality and the good of human-led coaching into the AI-first world by combining it to something that's healthy, that's safe, that's effective. And with that, we can shape an alternative future for those who, for themselves or their children, do not want to be AI, the intelligence partner that is taking over being intelligent, but is actually being a partner in keeping up their intelligence or maybe even increasing it. And this cognitive load is a big issue with LLMs as I experience it on my own usage of AI. And I can only foresee what it would mean to my 3 children that are starting to prompt with me being around in tools like GPT if they're becoming power users. And with that, I feel, we as coaches, we have not only an opportunity, but we also have a moral obligation to shape that space together and create an alternative future that we inform about. We inform coaches, we inform the society as a whole, we inform policymakers, and we tell them why we believe AI coaches should be built on certain standards.
I totally love that. And, I totally agree on these parts as well. What keeps me still up is the talk by Mustafa Suleiman, who is leading the Microsoft AI last year. On the second use case for him was that Copilot can be a world-class coach without defining what coach means to him. And then considering that they roll that out to 3.6 billion people worldwide. Yeah. So this is something that keeps me up at night sometimes as well. It's like, do we actually have any influence there? But I always try to focus on our microcosms and what we can change within that. And maybe I even thought the last few weeks, I need to apply with Microsoft or some of the big ones and then try to change it from the inside. That's going to be hard work. I'm not really sure yet if I'm up to it. But I think we need to step up, like you said, as well. And there is something that we can do to support shaping that technology. But I think, therefore, we need to step more into the topic of understanding the technology and working with the technology to then be able to have any influence or any possibilities to shape. Because a lot of the coaches that probably listen in today as well, they work at bigger companies. They can help shape that as well from the inside, hopefully. So if you hear us, please try your best to spread the message on what real coaching is. If we're thinking about coaching in organizations, what do you think the organizations are getting wrong when they try to adapt AI coaching today within their corporation?
I think the most fundamental thing they're getting wrong is design. It's not, they're not getting wrong the budgets or the people that are taking this project over and so forth. They have all of that, but they're getting fundamentally wrong how to design AI coaching in a way that serves them. First of all, you need someone who knows both worlds. Traditional learning and development, where coaching is one important tool, very rare and scarce from how you can apply it. And then you have all that informal training and all that static content and so forth. And then on the other hand, you also need to understanding of what is now possible with AI to make episodic learning or coaching continuous. How can AI help to prepare for learning, increase our capacity, our container to keep, input flowing and retain it, of how to increase behavior change after maybe a formal training and do that last mile, basically, that so far we haven't really figured out as corporate L&D within the options that we have available. And again, no blame. It's a thing of impossibility with the budgets that are assigned by, the leadership to create the transformation and the behavior change that's needed in order to keep up with the pace. I think it was fairly easy over, the last decades. And in the last decade, we've seen it's getting impossible to keep, especially older generations, on the pulse of time and the technological developments. And this change is ever increasing more and more. So with that, we need to be able to design systems, operating systems that allow us, depending on the audience within your organization, the goals. Is it, learning? Is it applying the learning? Is it, setting new goals and changing behaviors? Is it, learning new skills, soft skills, whatsoever? There are so many different goals. And then zooming in AI as much as needed into that equation, meaning AI is not that much shielded or limited by the budget as it is with the human training. So budget is an important factor that we need to take into consideration when designing our L&D of the future, because it will define how much human involvement can we bring in. Is the human just here to design, and then AI is taking the entire delivery from end to end? That's probably the cheapest way. Or is human doing the full delivery as well? That's probably the most expensive way to run L&D. And even if you choose the most expensive way, which is likely going to be the path for executive teams for the next couple of months and maybe years, it's going to be a miss if you do not fill the gaps of episodic coaching and learning with a companion that's 24/7 available. And we're seeing a lot today, in many cases, unfortunately, with shadow IT. So shadow IT means these are tools that are not officially vetted and provided by the corporate IT or by the employer themselves, but they're tools that are being used because they appear to be handy to the employees. An example for that would be you using your private LLM, Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, for something that is somewhat work-related. So that's the shadow IT. And shadow IT, or even the tools provided officially by the corporate, are being used to fill those gaps of episodic coaching and learning. We've learned it in your example. Copilot is branding their tool as a world-class coach. If you now, as an HR, says, "Oh, I can save that budget because we have now Copilot, and I know by my preferred vendor's statement that this is a wonderful coach. This is sorted, and they don't need any other coaching," then I might create some structural problems with my workforce when they use it for career development or for their own well-being. And it's going into therapy and suddenly giving advice on how to run your marriage or how to change your employer or whatsoever. So with that, when it comes back to the design, we need experts that know the traditional world of organizational development and what's now possible with AI. And unfortunately, the bulk part is on the design of the program. It's not just doing it and getting started. It's sitting down, understanding your organizational goal, measuring where you are, defining the tools, human-led, AI-led, hybrid, and then going step by step. And it's usually starting with a very small group of people, very, kind of tiny use cases, building up that muscle memory, building up that AI maturity, which is very different from AI literacy, and taking your employees, taking your leadership with you on that journey and constantly building a human reflection loop. That means we're always using the human-to-human connection to reflect about how does the usage of the tool make us feel? What did it change? What did it inject in terms of thinking? What do we maybe observe? Only if we're adding this extra layer of effort into this process, I believe we're going to be successful. If we're just buying a tool, which is pretty cheap, and we're rolling it out, we're not seeing adoption. But usually we see adoption because it's about 7% of the users that we see as high users or power users. And if then the tool is not designed for what they need, we're actually having these structural issues that I talked about because maybe the tool overreaches or is not built for that use case. So there's different risks in a poor design of such a pilot or such a rollout.
Would you have one tip for listeners on how to prevent that?
I hope I was already giving a few tips in terms of think about the design being the number one priority before you talk about the implementation and the scale of such implementation. Of course, you're not going to buy a tool that is not built for scale. That would be stupid. But think about what is the right expert partner internally or externally to design that. And just follow everything that I mentioned before. Think about what is the one use case where AI is perceived as helpful in the assumptions that we're doing, and then test those assumptions one by one and make sure you go slow to have the time to ask how employees are feeling. I always recommend start first with your leaders. Give them an opportunity to experience the AI, not just one conversation. Do a pilot with them over weeks. Have them use the tool. Reflect on what improved, what changed for them, what maybe can be a risk. Have these group meetings to discuss and reflect together, and only then say, "Hey, we've tried tool XYZ. We build it as per this instruction, as per these goals. This is what we experienced. This is the kind of the conclusions that we draw. Maybe after 4 weeks of leadership testing, we refined the tool in this way and that way." And then those leaders can serve as the experts, and they can really go out and be the leaders of that transformation, of that change, and taking the fears by knowing the tools inside out versus by managing spreadsheets of like who has adopted the tool, right? There's too many companies out there that now have leaderboards on how many tokens you used. It makes me vomit. It makes me absolutely vomit. Like it's so stupid because you can do these things if you've done all the other things right. But before you bring maturity to your workforce, don't optimize for the spreadsheet behaviors, because you will only get more structural problems. Don't fire people before you tested those tools and you build them into the culture, right? Like, yeah, just don't be stupid. People usually know what that means.
I love your passion. And I think everybody here can actually feel really well on that. This really means a lot to you, working on technologies like that. We have to close the session, unfortunately, but I would still love to ask you one more question. Knowing what you know now, what would you share with the earlier version of yourself before you got into AI?
So there's 2 points that I recall when I got into AI. Like, I was also working in the big corporate I was working 6 years in Google and, tried to change from within. This is also where I got to learn how it is to work with products that power billions of users globally. This is also where the vision comes from of having 1 billion users being touched in their lives by quality coaching. And then there was a second point where I decided to use GPT for my own writing, my social posts, my building the company eventually, right? So the first time I got in touch with AI in Google was about 2016, because they were quite early in adopting tools for developers, Python and TensorFlow and stuff. And then the more no-code tools, as was the GPT 3 series, was more like in 22, 23. If I take the 2023 moment, and I would now be able to give my former self a quick 1-minute briefing, I would say, holy cow, you have no freaking idea how the world is going to change. Everything you can imagine now, multiply it by 1,000 or 1,000,000 or 1,000,000,000, whatever opens your eyes for the world as it has changed before in the invention of the fire or the innovation of the steam engine, which was big. Now we're going to see something that is absolutely massive. It will change the way people live their lives from morning to evening, how they sleep, how they do everything, how they go to the toilet. Like, it's going to be so radical that the only chance you have to keep up with making what you feel is the right thing and staying true to your values is knowledge and maturity. And you can only gain this by being an early adopter, by being part of that change. Because the moment you check out, you will lose the ability to work with those folks. And I can foresee that if you do not do everything in your own power now, in 2-3 years from now, you will be already left behind, because the org chart is fundamentally changing. It's no longer going to be a human here, a human here. No, it's going to be, wait, we don't need this human. Kick it out. We're going to use an agent. Oh, there we have a human. But wait, he cannot orchestrate 1,000 agents. He's not the right one. Let's take another human that can orchestrate those agents. I wasn't clear about that magnitude back then. I knew this was going to be big and it's going to be changing, but I had no idea. And now even me working in AI, coaches looking at me saying, oh, this guy knows it all, right? And I'm like, no, I don't work in my terminal on my console using Claude Code with agentic stuff, because I don't have the skills and I have not caught up with that. So I just want to say this gap is increasing faster and faster. And if you have not built your AI literacy and maturity right now, you're going to go through a very intense and hefty period over the next couple of months, but you still have a chance. If you're trying to catch up in a few years from now, you're out. Because the only chance that you have is staying in your mindset of fear and not knowing what this is. And you will label it as something that is superpower and dangerous and kind of magical and hard to understand. And yes, I agree. AI has something of all of that. But the most important truth is it's a tool that humans created. It's not a super intelligence coming by something. We created it. We don't understand everything of it. That's our problem. We need to fix that. But it's a tool, it's a system, and you can learn it like you did so many other things in your life. And this is, I think, if this wake-up call would have been a bit more bold, I would probably be an even better achiever on my mission. But I also want to be graceful with myself for all the things that I haven't known, and I'm happy that I even had the courage to start the journey. And I'm going to, send the same love and gracefulness to all of you. So wherever you are on the journey, decide it with your heart and your head.
And hopefully enough sleep. I probably would have told your earlier version to just sleep enough to be ready. And I try to sleep as much as I can because I know that we live in very uncertain times and it's not only about AI. I'm just coming back from a holiday in Egypt and I saw still, like mules, pulling people and their garlic and, other things through the streets in the middle of the cars. But the guy on the back of it had a mobile phone in their hand. So you looked at something that looked like 100, 200 years back, but people had their mobile phones in their hand. And through these phones, I thought, oh, this is nice and peaceful. And they probably don't care about AI. And then I'm like looking at this and looking what they're doing. I'm like, no, even through these phones, they just have access to it. And it's even influencing their lives, no matter if you stand in front of a 4,000-year-old pyramid or not. The world is at another place. But thank you so much for sharing this with us today, Lewin. Can you just quickly share with our audience and how they can contact you or hear more about you?
You can visit our website, which is coachbot.ai, and you can learn more about our technology platform, but also the council that is overseeing our developments. And then you can follow me on LinkedIn. We have a company channel, coachbot.ai, but you can also follow my personal LinkedIn. There's only 2 Lewin Keller in this world on LinkedIn, so you will find me easily. And yeah, looking forward to connect with some new faces.
I didn't even know that. There's only one Rebecca Rutschman on there. So you have 2. That's very, very good.
The other one is with a V, is not a W, but LinkedIn is showing both. Yeah,
I chose both. And can people maybe try out a nice coach bot to use? I know people are always curious.
Yeah, I would guide them actually to the Viva La Coaching page and the research that we're doing there. Viva La Coaching has been building various tools, also under your supervision. Thank you for that. And we make them accessible and available to the world, for the world to test and see the difference. And I think, Viva La Coaching is a great place to find access to those bots. You can sign up for the research circle, and then you can have free of charge GDPR and EU AI Act conform access to those tools.
Yeah, maybe we can share Alma with them. I'll put that in the show notes, and you will get some of those links in there as well. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Lewin talked about shared responsibility between the infrastructure provider, the coach, and the organization building the tool, which sounds kind of right until something goes wrong. Because when harm is everyone's responsibility, it has a habit of becoming no one's. That's it for today's episode of The Edge of Human and AI, a Viva La Coaching podcast. If this conversation opened something up for you, the best thing you can do is share it. Send it to a colleague, a client, a fellow coach, anyone who's asking the same questions you are. The more of us standing at this edge, the better the conversation gets. Follow us on your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode. And come find us at vivalacoaching.com, where you'll find resources, community, and conversations you won't find anywhere else. We'll be back next week with another voice from the edge. Until then, come stand with us at the edge.